Hey, it's Rob. Welcome to Axel's Garage. Alright, we're out here with Amanda's. This is our 97 TJ. It's got the big 4-banger in it. And we had some power steering woes with it. And in some previous videos, we had a cracked power steering reservoir. And the reservoir for these 4-cylinder Jeeps is not available anywhere. Nobody makes it. If you could find a used one, it's around $100. And if you can find like an NOS one that somebody's got on their shelf in the garage, they're looking to get like $200 for it. And it's just a plastic reservoir. So what we did was we took a reservoir from an early XJ, which is the remote mount style, and this is the one I have in my hand, and we put this in, and it worked fine. Had to make a little modification to mount it off of this little clip. Everything worked fine, and we were putting around in the Jeep in no time. Well, so we had to crack the reservoir. Actually, we tried to fix the cracked reservoir first. We did some plastic welding on it, and it held for a couple months, but then was getting low and realized it was leaking, and put this one in and drove this one around for a couple months, and everything was fine. And then she took a trip, drove for about an hour, and towards the end of the trip, she said it felt like the steering was locked up. And when she opened the hood, there was power steering, or actually ATF, because we put ATF in there, but all over the engine, like it had come out of the top here. So there was no leaks in the hoses, but it all came out on the cap through the vent in the cap, and had just covered everything in ATF. So she needed to get home. I said, well, get some more fluid in there and see if you can get it back home. And she was able to get it back home, but she said by the time she got back home, it was an hour on the highway, so she really wasn't turning, so using the steering so much as she was just driving and the pump is spinning. She said by the time when she got close to home, the steering was very tight, and when she parked the vehicle and looked in the fluid there was still fluid in it, and it hadn't boiled all over the place. It was about half full of fluid in the reservoir. She said, but the steering was very tight. And then the car sat, because it's been winter and we haven't done anything, and the car sat for a couple weeks. And I said, well, bring it over to my house and I will see if I can get this thing fixed. And when she checked the fluid before she came over here, and it's only a mile away, said the fluid was fine, got in it, and it drove absolutely fine. And she parked it here for a week or so. Now I got to it, I started it up, let it warm up a little bit, took it for a quick spin, and the steering felt absolutely fine. A little bit of whine in the power steering, which we've had for years, a little whine in the power steering. So I took the reservoir out, I unhooked both lines going to the reservoir, and I got the return line that comes out of the box pointing down at my drain pan under the Jeep. Let me see if you can see it. So I got my return line pointing down at the drain pan, the front end jacked up, and what I've been doing is, as I'm cleaning up the mess, just keep turning the wheels back and forth, and each time you turn them and let them sit for a couple minutes, more fluid comes out. And pretty much what you're doing is you're just purging the fluid out of the box. Alright, so while I'm cleaning up this whole mess, that's where we're at. I'm going to go back and forth every couple minutes and get the rest of the fluid out of the box. So we're starting off with fresh fluid, and we'll see what our course of action is on this one. Alright, so I got completely sidetracked. Someone passed by. They know I'm out here filming. They know exactly what I'm doing, and they're going to stop and sit there idling. And I had to turn the camera off and deal with that, and completely took me out of the game. So what I'm thinking is, because the original reservoir was leaky, and it would leak and then it would run out of fluid, we'd add fluid, it would leak, it would run out of fluid, and that happened over a period of years. Then it completely went, and she probably ran it dry a couple times. Then we put the new one in, the new reservoir, and fixed that problem, and we haven't really pushed the vehicle as far as driving it for a long time. It was local around town stuff that she was using it. And then the first time that she was an hour on the highway is when it all seemed to boil over, for the lack of a better term. So what I'm thinking is the pump is shot, and when the pump is going, you know, as she's going down the highway at 3,000 RPMs, that pump is spinning like crazy, generating a ton of heat because it's shot and making that fluid expand to the point where it's boiling out all over the place. So that's what my thought process is, and it's, even when it's full, it is a little noisy, and it really shouldn't be. So we're going to replace the pump. I'm going to keep turning the wheels back and forth to get all that fluid out, and then we'll get it down so that it's at a height that I could actually reach in there and get the pump out, and we'll replace the pump. All right, it's been a while since I've done this, but you got your tensioner pulley right below the power steering pump, and there's a 15 millimeter on that, and I believe you just gotta loosen it up a little. Usually on there pretty tight. So you're gonna loosen the pulley bolt in the middle of the tensioner pulley, and then you're gonna come up and you have a bolt right on this bracket here. Hopefully you can see where I'm pointing there. Right under the belt on that bracket there, and that you're going to, that's a 15 millimeter also. You're going to loosen that, and that's what tensions the belt. So if we can get in here, just like that, and you loosen that, and the tensioner pulley backs up out of the way nice, and that takes some tension off your belt, and you should be able to now slide the belt off a little more. And you can slide your belt off. Just flap it out of the way for now. So now we're just dealing with this pump. So it looks like I got a bolt on top, two on top, and there should be one on the bottom somewhere, I believe. We'll have to look for that. They look to be about 10 millimeter. Doesn't look like I'm going to get a socket on it, so I'm going to have to use an open end wrench or a box wrench. Alright, so before I went and got my wrenches out, it's not a 10 millimeter by the way, it's a 13. You could actually, there's holes in the pulley. You could actually go through the hole in the pulley and pull them out right like that. That works out pretty good. They're really long. I guess that's why there's the holes in the pulley, because you could have never done it with a wrench. Damn. Another one? Oh, there we go. Just slide it right out of the bracket there. And we probably should have taken this off first, but we can get it. All right, so I'm gonna slide the pump back into the bracket, because we probably should have disconnected the pressure line before. It's a 16 millimeter. Hopefully it's not in there real tight. It hasn't, no, not too bad. Hasn't been in there that long. A couple of years when we replaced this line. So pull it out. I'll just leave it over on the side. It's got like an O-ring fitting that's in the pump. I'll show you when I pull it out. So if I pull the pump out, you see inside the fitting here, there's an O-ring. So you got to make sure on the new pump there's an O-ring. And now what we're going to have to do is get this pulley off, which I'll look at the new one, but I believe we're going to have to use some kind of puller on it, on this here. I think I have something that'll work on this. I'll have to try to find something. I'll show you what I come up with. So we came into the garage. I used a regular, like generic universal puller like this to grab under the lip in the pulley Okay, with the center section. The center section, I put a small socket that was the right size to go on the pump, and we just used an impact on a low torque setting and just kept going until it popped off. And once it got moving, it popped off. It wasn't too difficult. Problem is, now we got to get this pulley on. So let me move the camera down and I'll show you what we got. So we got the new pump in the vise. I just got some rags so I don't mar it all up, but I got it in the vise. On the two tabs. I'll show you the old one. How I got it. You got these two, these where the bolts go through, so you got these two. Good place to just lock it to hold it in place so you have an extra set of hands. Now this has got to go on. Some people will pound it on. I think that's the reason why you might have some failure in that bearing if you pounded it on. Probably not good for the pump. So what we're thinking is, like you would do like with a harmonic balancer. I actually took out my harmonic balancer puller set, but the sizes were too big. I found a bolt that threads in. You could see inside here there is a threaded shaft. The shaft is threaded. There is also like an inverted Torx, it looks like, or a big Torx there. I don't know what that would be for. I'm not sure. I'm just trying to figure out a way to get this on. So what I think I'm going to do is take a little bit of oil and lube up the shaft a little bit, and I'm going to lube up the bolt that I'm going to use. A little oil on that, and you know, I would love to heat this up a little. Maybe we'll just heat this up a little bit. I'm going to take this pulley, I'm going to heat it up just a little bit. I'm going to put some heat on this, hoping that it's going to expand it just a little. And it actually sat right on there. So now I'm going to take this, and of course I didn't have a socket ready. I'm going to put a screwdriver down the hole, screwdriver down the holes, keep it from spinning, and then come in. And it seems to be pulling down, so I'm just going to keep looking on the bottom. And I have the impact on the lowest torque. How hot that bolt's going to be from the heat transferring from the pulley. A little hot. Want to check my progress, and it's going. Alright, I'll spray a little lube in. Yeah. Yes.
Oh, I heard you talking.
I was talking. What?
Oh, I'm going.
Where you going? Oh, to get your thing? Okay. Alright.
Okay.
Right. it's moving now. I'm gonna have to up the torque. Let's see what happens. Oh, that worked really good. Oh, that looks almost all the way down. I don't know how far on this. I wish I had a bolt that had a little more space, but hot. I'm gonna put a nut. I'll grab another washer. There we go. And we'll go the rest of the way. It looks pretty far down. Trying to see in there if I could see a gap. Spinning good. Let's see where it's at. Looks like it's right up to the top there. I think it could go down just a hair. Give it one more shot. But I think we're good right there. Let's see. All right. All right, and you can see we got it down nice and flush, still a little warm, nothing crazy. Take it out of the vise. If you couldn't see how we had the screwdrivers in, had the screwdriver going into the hole, going all the way down on both sides, so it just wasn't grabbing this tab, it was grabbing both of them this way. We wouldn't crack anything on the pump. Went down all the way. Nice and straight, and hopefully that'll line up. You know, if you don't get this in the right distance, then the belt doesn't line up completely, and you wind up tearing the edges of your belt. But hopefully, we'll go throw this in the car and see if it lines up good. All right, so I know there's a lot of sun glare. Doing the best I can. The sun really came out shining. So now. You can see I put the belt on just loosely. I could still spin everything, but I put the belt on just to show that it lines up right. So the pulley is in all the way, and now we're going to get these bolts in, and the pump is just sitting in here. So if you own a Jeep, your 3 favorite things besides money is going to be anti-seize, penetrating oil, and white lithium grease. In this situation, I'll use white lithium grease, and I'm gonna grease up the threads of the bolts and try to fish them through the holes here. Okay. I'm not going to cinch them down all the way. I want to get them all started first. I can turn that pulley to the next hole. And I got to try to rotate the pump a little bit, get it lined up. Alright, and then with this hand, I'll spin the bolt, and this hand, I'll try to move the pump a little bit. Bolt hole lined up. And that one went in pretty easily too. And now we'll work on the bottom one. A lot of people that don't watch me that often, people that watch me all the time know, why do I do this? Put a little lube on those bolts, make it easier for the next guy. And why do I do that? Because that next guy might just be you. Got the other top one. All right. And our pump is in and bolted up. Now we can try to work on the upper hose here. And I'm going to tighten this down now. Alright, so what I did after I got the reservoir back in and the return lines, I jacked up the front again, put about half the reservoir full of fluid, and then turned the wheel all the way to the right, to the left, and you did see the fluid bubbling in the reservoir as you purged some of that air out. And I kept going back and forth, kept adding, trying to keep the level about half, and back and forth. Then I started it up, let it run. It seemed to make a little bit of a whine, which I really wasn't crazy about, but it did make a little bit of a whine. Turned it off, let it sit, checked the level, kept adding fluid until I got it to the cold level, because the fluid is cold. And then I just had it idling for about 10 to 15 minutes full of fluid. I cycled the wheels again, as you saw, shut it down, I'll let it sit for a couple minutes, I'll check that fluid again. It's not going to be considered hot, just idling for a few minutes. So if it's anywhere between the cold and the hot, I think the level is good in the reservoir, and we'll have to take it for a ride and see how it feels. It does have, I hear a little bit of a whine. I'm not 100% sure it's coming from the power steering. It could be the water pump whining, could be the alternator whining, who the hell knows. This thing has always been a little whiny. But hopefully this won't start spilling out and locking up her steering like it was doing. Maybe when I close the hood I won't even hear it. She probably won't hear it with the radio on and the top down, which is usually the way she drives it. So hopefully it'll work out. We'll go for a ride and see how it is. We bought a new pump, not a reman, but we did get an Amazon special. It seemed like a halfway decent looking pump. I don't know. If we have problems with this one, then I'm just going to go to the local auto parts store, get one from them so I could keep returning if it keeps whining. But I'm hoping that this one will work out. I usually do gamble sometimes with the Amazon parts, and sometimes I lose, sometimes I don't. But sometimes it's no better at your local, Advance Auto or AutoZone or whatever you have by you. So that's it for this one. It was actually a pretty easy change. If I wasn't filming it, it's probably an hour tops. Hardest part was not even getting the pulley off, getting the pulley back on, but you do need a puller to get that pulley off. And you saw the way I kind of made my own kind of thrust press to get the pulley back on, lined up nice, perfect, and went in and out without a hitch. So that's it today from Axel's Garage. Hope you enjoyed the video. Let me know I'll link this pump that I used in the description down below. Let me know if you've used one like it, or if you've had similar experiences with the power steering on these 4-cylinder Jeeps. Let me know what you think. As always, thanks for watching.